Hello
Happy
again, Rabbi.
long time no speak, Merrill.
Right, right.
All right.
Happy New Year to you and David. I do miss sitting next to David every Shabbat morning, so send my regards to him. I hope he's doing okay. And for those,
Yes, thank you. Will do.
yeah, those of you who are interested, was able to get a COVID vaccine yesterday, Greenwich, where I work, and I was able to schedule an appointment in the morning and in the afternoon. In 20 minutes, I was in and out. It was an amazing experience. And you could, so long as you are of the age and you have identification, you can go to Greenwich, you can go to Stanford. But I was very impressed how quickly they did it. And I have my follow-up appointment, and so I'm ready to, I'm not without side effects. It's going to affect everybody a little bit differently. And with me, I'm sleeping a little bit more soundly, I would say that. And so getting more rest, and I'm very grateful for that. But I'm great that you can join us. Should we wait another minute? See, we have 5 participants, I see. And I know Phyllis usually joins us. And she asked me for the link for the story, so I know that she probably has read it. But it's not necessary to read any of these stories. Very briefly, this is the third in the sessions that Rabbi Moshe Kurtz and I are conducting. Because of my strong interest in the written word, particularly poetry, and I've led many poetry conversations with the Jewish Historical Society of Fairfield County for 5 years. Some of you know about it. But I have an interest in succinct literature, in very much like the Drash. When you study a sentence, a pasuk in the Torah, you really can get into one pasuk. You can spend an hour easily. The Talmud speaks for pages on a particular idea, so that what we've done here is try to collate short stories, the classic short stories, and I'm really sifting through literature to come up with stories that are very short. Lottery was the first one with Shirley Jackson. It's a beautiful short story. It was anthologized all over in every textbook of short stories. New Yorker first printed in 1948. So we did the Lottery. Then we did a Native American short story by Leslie Marmon Silka, the man who would bring rain clouds. We did that, kind of in honor of Native American History Month, but because of the message of the short story. And each story you'll see has a lot of messages, and we want you, the audience, to participate as much as you can and bring your insights to it, because the story does not, it just begins the discussion about the various midot characteristics that make the golden mean, the Aristotelian golden mean. How do you live a good life? That's basically what many of these writers are telling us. How do you live the good life? How do you live with yourself? We're going through a crisis time, pandemic. People are alone. They're isolated. They've never been more confronted with themselves in isolation than they have been now. And we know suicide rate is up tremendously amongst all professions, medical profession, students. Arizona, Las Vegas opened up their schools just recently because there's so many suicides amongst the children. The children, right? They thrive. I'm at Greenwich High School a couple of days a week teaching in the science department, and I can see that these students need social contact. They need to be on top of each other and conversing. And I'm breaking up. I keep them 6 feet apart, even though maybe 4 or 5 students in every class. It's the ideal teaching situation in the classroom. But so with that introduction, let me talk a little bit about the Cactus. Okay. So O. Henry is the writer, and many of you know his original name was William Sidney Porter. born in Greensboro, North Carolina, 1862, and he died in New York City 47 years later. And in my humble opinion, as this short story has shown to me, and I, like Jake, I remember reading one of his short stories in high school, and it was always, the message was he has a twist to every story. It's not what he presents is not what it seems. What seems is not the reality, and the reality is something that we have to search for behind the words. And there were very few words in this story of dialogue. Those of you who have read it, you'll see it doesn't start until the third page. So O. Henry picks words, and you basically have a couple of characters in the story. You have two actual characters, and then you have a third one. The two characters are friends. They're long lost friends. One is living somewhere in the Caribbean, perhaps in Cuba, and he's come to the States for his sister's wedding, and his name is Carruthers, and his close buddy is Trisdale. Okay, Trisdale. I sometimes call him Truesdale because I think O. Henry's playing on the name Try. He's trying, in my humble opinion, to be somebody other than who he is. He's really trying hard, and that's what O. Henry is trying to unmask, to show us the real person behind this character who calls himself Trisdale. Okay, so it begins with I'll read the first paragraph because the words are so important, and he gives you a hint as to where we're going to be going. The most notable thing about time is that it is so purely relative. Okay, philosophical statement, if you will, but time, why does he introduce that? A large amount of reminiscence is by common consent conceded to the drowning man. Okay, drowning man. And it is not past belief that one may review an entire courtship while removing one's gloves. Okay, so very pithy. How does it relate to the story? Because we have a courtship going on here. We have a protagonist, a would-be husband, a would-be beau, who is Trisdale, and he has fallen madly in love with this Carruthers sister, and he is a bachelor. Second paragraph, he's a bachelor, and in the middle of his room is you have it in your text here. You see a picture of him staring out the window at a cactus. So, cactus is a green plant in a red earthen jar. Cactus lives, as we know, alone. It survives with a little bit of water in the desert. It's kind of a lonely type plant, okay? And it has prickles on it. That's very significant in the story, are the prickles here.
Oh, you're saying, Richard, that the cactus is supposed to be a representation of the main character of Trisdale?
Yeah, what about him?
Oh, I didn't catch that when I read it. So
It's him.
he is the
characterize him as he's a bachelor. He is courting. Again, that word is very charged. He's courting a lady who is the sister of this Carruthers other character, and the only two characters that we meet here. We never really meet the lady except in very short dialogue. The dialogue here is very, very. It doesn't begin until the third page. Okay, so they are together. They're coming back from a wedding, and they're still dressed to the hilt, and there are white favors like stars upon their coats in the gloom of the apartment. So
Could you tell me what that's about? What is this favors like stars?
Favors. When you go to an event, a bar mitzvah.
I know, but what does that have to do with this?
Flowers. You get flowers to pin on your lapel. I think that's what they're referring to. That, and later on, when they describe the church wedding, there's an array of flowers, and so many flowers, and the smell is overwhelming. And so you have this sense of this joy that's happening outside of him, and it's happening to the woman that he is courting, quote unquote courting. Okay. So what does that mean? He's courting. Okay.
Was courting her.
It's a,
Um,
to me, it's an entire courtship that you can describe by taking off your gloves. It's such a quickie flame. It's a flame that never really ignited on both sides, and it went out very quickly on one side, and the other side, being the protagonist, is stuck with himself because all he has is himself. He starts off here with this great. He's coming across as being somebody who is very knowledgeable in Spanish. He is his buddy Carruthers is building him up as that. This is my buddy. This guy knows Spanish literature. He knows the Spanish culture, and the first bit of dialogue is, and Captain Carruthers tells me, this is the first dialogue, almost 4 pages, that you speak Spanish language like a native. Why have you hidden this accomplishment from me? Is there anything you do not know? So evidently he is, and he doesn't deny her. And the reality is here that he does not really know. Spanish he knows. He goes to the back of a dictionary and very pompously picks out some phrases in order to show her that he is a connoisseur of Spanish literature, Spanish tradition. And this puts her on a pedestal, okay? It puts him on a pedestal, and what he's doing here, if you read very carefully, Phyllis, I'm glad you had a chance to look at the story, is that he is putting himself on a pedestal to be adored. He has this tremendous sense of self-vanity. He wants to be adored by a woman that he just briefly met. He met her maybe one time, very shortly, and what she's doing is he has built himself up to such a beautiful degree. And I read some of this language that she confronted him by his innermost, unmitigated, and unbedecked self. In other words, she's showing him who he is. He thinks he's this great guy, and he's going to have this beautiful lady as his wife, and he doesn't really know her. And all she knows about him is something that her brother says, "Oh, this guy is brilliant. He's a brilliant man. He's well known. He dresses beautifully." And he says on page 2, he had never confronted himself, his innermost, unmitigated, unbedecked self. He saw all the garbs of pretense and egoism that he had now worn, now turned to rags of folly. So he is telling us here that for some reason he has bedecked himself as he is a man of the world. He's a connoisseur of languages, and really what happens in the story, as you see, is that he confronts her at a party, and he basically has proposed to her based upon this very short courtship that he has, because he's talking about himself and everything is me, and he basically proposes to her, and then she doesn't respond, and then the very next day he gets a cactus plant delivered by her groom. Okay, and he's at a loss. There's a little sticker on, a little note denoting, and we find out the last sentence what that means. It means basically that you are to be alone and you are come and take me. Okay, that's what it means in English. Okay, so he meets her at a party. She gives him a cold shoulder. He's waiting for an answer. He looks at her. He absorbs the oblation as a desert drinks the rain that can coax from it no promise of blossom or fruit. What O. Henry is saying is that her admiration, just her looks, her beauty, her admiration for a person that she thinks he is, and he is not that person. Okay, is as if he is drinking in her. She's presenting him an oblation. It's like a korban, a sacrifice to him. But he is drinking it like a cactus that it's not blossoming. It's not going anywhere. Okay, this is O. Henry's sly way of saying, buddy, you got it all wrong here. You're off. You've lost it. Your ego has taken you to such a high level that you don't even know that this woman doesn't. She's scorning you. Basically, at the party, he should have gotten the message. Okay, he doesn't get the message, and then afterwards, he and the brother are invited to a wedding, and at the wedding, he's hoping still that she loves him. He looks at her. There's a limpid look on her, and that he realizes that she really loves this new man. That she never loved him. That she basically stripped him. She took the garb off of him. She denuded him, and showed him what he is. That he is on page 4. Trisdale grimly wrenched apart the seam of his last glove. Back to the first sentence. The glove is coming off. He is being, the emperor wore no clothes. It's a beautiful metaphor. The king is being stripped of his apparel. The crowning instance of the fatuous and tardily mounted egotism came vividly back to him. She stripped him down to what he was. And what is he? He is left by himself. He's left with the pricks and pangs of emptiness, and he's like the cactus. He's like he's feeling the prick of the thorn that was to pierce him later on page 4. So I leave it that way. It is O. Henry's way of saying, hey, buddy, don't let your vanity, don't let your sense of self get carried away. Get to know the other person, let the other person get to know you, and that you're not a king unto yourself. I mean, you have to relate to people, you have to have humility, you've got to have conversation. And at the end of the story, it takes the brother who's living in the Caribbean from a Spanish country to translate what was on the cactus. The cactus basically says, it means in English, in the language, vento marme, come and take me. And when the first time I read the story, not really knowing anything about it, I said, he'll never take and get this girl. That's basically what it told me. But I think beyond that, it's the irony. It's the supreme irony of a man who thought that he had the world, he had this woman in the palm of his hand, and basically he never had her. And so the cactus comes to sting him. And that if you're that type of a vainglorious type person, eventually it will catch up to you and you will be left alone to wither in the desert like the cactus. So that's basically my exposition here. I know Rabbi Moshe and I had a good discussion. He saw it in a different way, but I turned the table over to Rabbi Moshe because I can get carried away. There's so much musar, ethics of the fathers here, Orchos Tzadikim that we discussed, that I'm turn it over to Rabbi Moshe and want to get his comments and get your feedback, anybody who'd like to pipe in.
Thank you, Richard. And thanks for the synopsis. It's, so Richard and I, we tend to discuss the stories before we bring it to all of you. And the way this story got suggested was usually Richard suggests the stories to me, but I brought this one to Richard's attention because a few years ago when I was working at Young Israel Plainview, I actually shared this story as a part of my Rosh Hashanah sermon in Shul. I opened up with this story. Some people like to share Midrashim, some people like to share Hasidic tales. This O. Henry story I thought was really great. And Richard and I both agree that it speaks to the midah ra, to the negative character trait of pride. And certainly, no matter how you read this story, I think Trisdale's fall ultimately comes from his pride. He tries to impress this woman who he's interested in, and she thinks he knows Spanish, which apparently is very impressive. And he lied about knowing Spanish. So much so that in the end of the day, after he proposed and she sends this cactus, had he known Spanish, he would have known how to translate what it meant. That the name of that cactus was vento marme, that it means come and take me. So this is where Richard and I disagreed in the story, but the same lesson comes out. His ultimate downfall is his pride. But the way I read this story was that this woman actually was interested in him, genuinely thought that he did understand at least some basic Spanish. And when she sent that cactus, it was her way of saying, yes, come and take me. And that reason why when they saw each other a few days later and he demanded a response and she didn't understand why he didn't understand her message, she got upset at him for that. So I actually read it as the woman being genuine, not the woman wanting to teach him a lesson. But Richard, I think you had a different take on it, right?
I did, yeah. I'm very sensitive to the language here, and I think that the clues are, right at the beginning, an entire courtship, and by removing one's gloves. I mean, it's the ultimate put down of a man of pride. Yes, I agree that she was interested in him. She was interested in him because he, excuse me, let me get rid of this. Okay, sorry about that. Yes, she was interested in him because her brother kind of seconded the motion that, hey, this guy is take him. He's a world connoisseur of Spanish, and he's very knowledgeable, and he's a gentleman, and she was impressed with that part. But what I got out of that is that it stopped there. She, he put himself on this pedestal, and he saw her admiration as an oblation, as a gift to the god. He put himself like an Adonis type figure to be worshipped, and like I think of Marlon Brando in his glory on the waterfront. The guy was so gorgeous. And he was a tremendous star. He played Julius Caesar in one of the movies, uh, and she really liked him because he portrayed himself as this person who he was not. And somehow along the way, she awoke to the fact that he was BSing. I hate to use that word, but he BS'd her, and somehow she saw through it, and that courtship ended right there. It ended right after where she must have found out he didn't respond to the plant, didn't understand the irony behind the plant. Yes, it could be taken that I'm yours, but why send a plant that has prickles on it? Why send a plant that is not really a beautiful looking plant? It's kind of it's stark, it's desert stark green, and it's not something that many of us have um, in our terrariums and wherever we have the plants in our home. Uh, to me, it was a stark put down to a man that who portrayed himself to be something the other than he would be. He was a man that built himself with beautiful clothing, and I want to use that as a segue to the text that Rabbi Moshe reintroduced to me. It's called Orchos Tzadikim. It's the path of the righteous. It's a beautifully written book of Midot that was written by a anonymous scholar of the 1500s. We don't know who he is, but it is a beautiful book. I recommend it very highly. And the first chapter in this book is on gaiva. It's on pride, and it talks about many of the characteristics that our good friend Trisdale has here. One of the things I wanted to point out is a reference to clothing, and clothing is a symbol of, I look at clothing as a way of adorning Shabbat, but there are people that take clothing to the end. They have to show off, where they've gone shopping yesterday, and the jewelry and the diamonds and the earrings and the fancy $5,000 suits that you need to show off. And in the Orchot Tzadikim, he has a section here about one who adorns his body borders on lewdness, okay? For he will cause women to look at and admire him, as a result of which he will come close to them and fall prey to levity and lightheartedness. The woman too, who adorns herself for men, ignites their hearts and stirs up improper thoughts within them. And her punishment, therefore, is very great, and she places a stumbling block to many men. That's just one of the ideas of a chapter that's about 50 pages, The Gate of Hardiness. I invite you to look at that book. I studied this book with Rabbi Cohen for a year, and we got through a few chapters. It's very dense. Okay, so any comments, Rabbi Moshe, and from any of our participants? It doesn't have to be about the story, about your reaction to the subject of pride. Okay, because the very next subject in this Orchot Tzadikim is humility. And now my discussion with Rabbi Moshe, I said, his name is the paradigm of the greatest prophet in Judaism, Moses, our great father Moses, who was described in the Torah as being, there was no one greater in humility than Moses. Okay, so humility is a great midah, a great character description, and what this man is lacking is humility. The word humility is only used one time in the story. I try to find it, and it is. If you look very carefully, he realizes at some point that he has no humility. This guy, he says it on page 3. He says, "Humbled now, I sought the answer amid the ruins of his self-conceit." This guy was so conceited. I remember in high school, I went to Ramaz, so we had a co-ed. I went to 10th grade Ramaz, so we had co-ed, and and I remember the word, oh, this person conceited, that person conceited, everybody, and that was a hot word when I was growing up. And conceit is really self-love. Nothing wrong with self-love, but when it becomes so absorbing, as it does for Trisdale, it causes destruction. This guy he has gone from riches to rags in his own mind. Starts off, he's up there, he's beautifully dressed, gentleman. He thinks he has the lady in the palm of his glove, but no, she takes the glove off of him, and he is humiliated. To use the word humble, he becomes somebody who is humiliated, and he's learned a very tough lesson here in a short period of time. Time went by like that for him, but it will pain him a lot in the future. That's just my take on it.
Yeah. So Richard, thanks for laying that out. And that's interesting. The word humble only comes up once in the story. I see what you're pointing out. I'm curious, did anyone else have any opinions on how they read the story? Particularly, I'm very curious about Richard's reading and my reading. Did you see the woman as being spiteful, trying to teach Trisdale a lesson? Did you see her as being sincere? I think I see in the chat Merrill weighed in on it a little bit. Merrill, if you're there, do you want to share some of your thoughts with us?
Yeah, I thought it was clear. She was sending him a reply yes, because he knew Spanish and he didn't understand it. So she meets him a couple of days later and she's waiting for him to say, oh, I got, the cactus and I'm coming to get you now, we're on. And he just stands there and she figures he's taking back the proposal and she's been jilted, basically. It seems she doesn't seem like the spiteful type at all. She seems like this sweet, innocent sort. And she was trying to very subtly, in a sort of almost romantic way, send him a message via this Spanish plant. And that, I don't know, that seemed obvious to me. I have a question for you, Rabbi Kurtz, on a different story. It says something about the garments of the soul, which I've read about in Kabbalah things. I was wondering if you had any comment about that Jewish-ish reference. So.
Well, I don't have any particular opinions on that, but certainly. So you said you saw that in a Kabbalistic text. That's what you're referring to?
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting. So Kabbalah is definitely not my area of specialty, but you saw us in the Zohar or another text you're thinking of?
Some class I took. I don't remember.
Interesting. So I think, let's go back to Orchos Tzadikim. I think, Richard, you're referencing clothing before an Orchos Tzadikim. Let's just see if we can look that up. search the word clothing. So I think, Richard, you didn't, when you quoted the passage about clothing here, there wasn't like a metaphysical dimension to it, was there?
No, yes, in a way there is, because as you go on, talks a little bit about the midah of self-awareness, and clothing is a way of adorning yourself. It's showing the inner part of you, especially when you really feel good about yourself, particularly when you're getting married. Of course, you take clothing to the limit, but there are times at which clothing conceals who you are. And what he is intimating here is that it really prevents you, when you show the world you are somebody other than you are, by adorning yourself with clothing and by adorning yourself with reputation that's not yours. You are really concealing the inner self. You're preventing self-development. And
Right.
Orchid Sadikim is an excursion into self-development, along with Luzado's book, Ramchal's book on
Yes, Sharon. Yeah.
Derek Yesharim, exactly. Yeah, there is this element of inner light. You are by by adorning yourself, presenting yourself to the world as somebody you are not. You are basically not shining your inner light. You're dimming it. You're diminishing who you are. You don't know who you are. You're somebody who is not who you are. And one of the things I want to throw out, Merrill, I agree to a certain degree with what you and Rabbi Moshe are saying, but why at the party does it say when he is looking for her answer, and he already has the cactus, he received it, and he goes to a party later, and it says, with womanly swiftness she took her cue from his manner and turned to snow and ice. It seems that she scorns him at the party. Something happened between her sending the cactus. Either it's, yes, I agree to your proposal, in a very roundabout way, but ambiguous. We all agree it's ambiguous. Ambiguous. Why not send a beautiful, when I was up at Yale New Haven Hospital in ICU, one of our members of our synagogue, I won't mention who, sent me this beautiful, lavish adornment, which I still have. It's still growing. I mean, it's just gorgeous. Why that cactus? I mean, yes, it's a subtle way of, yes, I know Spanish, you know Spanish, and I'm going to give you this special hint. But I think there's another way of looking at the story, and that is O. Henry. O. Henry he's like the omniscient author here. He knows what's in everybody's mind. Now, it's not alive for us to have the discussion. So I'm imagining that he's there. What he's saying, I'm giving you guys hints as to what my take is. And my take is, yes, maybe you'll take it that she loves him and adores him, because he is a Spanish superhero. He's a Cervantes character, so Don Quixote. He's at windmills. He's shooting his lance at windmills. Maybe he's that type of a character. But she adores him. Yes, she adores him on some level. But I think that maybe O. Henry, if he were here, would say, but it's ironic. I'm creating a lot of irony here. So you see it one way, I'll make you see it the other way, and that's the beauty of his writing. The guy is an incredible writer of irony. I think he's a master of irony.
Thank you, Richard. And so I see Phyllis is raising her hand, so I just wanted to bring Phyllis into the discussion to share what's on her mind, and then I'll return back to Meryl's clothing point afterwards. Phyllis, are you're with us?
Yeah, I wanted to see the beginning of the, I can't scroll down on the tablet that I have. So if you could put the beginning of the essay.
Oh,
push it down so I could see the
you don't see
beginning
the
of it.
link in the chat?
Talking about the very first, the first line in it.
First line,
I can't see it. Something like something being threadbare. And
Most notable thing about time is that it is so purely relative.
no, the threadbare, the clothing.
Oh, clothes.
I can't
Wait.
see anything on the screen now anyway.
Wait, you're talking about a part of the story you're looking for?
Yeah, the very beginning.
You want the first paragraph?
Yeah, from the very beginning, the very start of it.
I'll copy it and put it in the chat for you.
Oh,
But
you
just
had the sheet up before. It just you had the bottom part rather than the top part.
oh, I see. Okay. Here it
Anyway,
is.
I was thinking about something was threadbare, the threadbare of his soul or something like that. The garments of his soul must have appeared sorry and threadbare.
Ah, here it is.
Yeah, yeah,
It's all the way on the top.
I got it. It's right here in this paragraph.
yeah.
You can see it?
No, it's not there.
It says,
No, it's,
No, it's all the way on the top. Oh, okay, it's repeated then.
Moshe, here, I'm holding it up here. It's the very top in very small print. I believe the editor's annotation, the
Yeah,
editor
yeah,
story put it in
Yeah.
to give us a clue as to what to look for. Do you,
yeah,
you see it, Rob Moshe?
yeah. So I think what I'm thinking is that his life
oh, I see.
was
what you mean.
that his life was full of holes. He, there was an emptiness in him. He was so conceited and so concerned with himself that when he was with this woman, he kept talking about himself, and he loved that she kept boosting him up and pointing out wonderful things about him. Yet never once did he either say thank you, or did he respond to her that there was something nice about her. He just took it all in. It was all about him, and I think his life was threadbare. His life was conceitful and just about him. It was me, me, me.
Right. He's
And
narcissistic.
yeah, and not a nice word. You don't see in the whole essay anything nice that he said about her, except when he realized that she loved somebody else and not him. He realized how wonderful she looked, and that there was something special about her, which he never told her. He never said a nice word to her.
That's a really great point. He's
And
soaking in all of the compliments, but he doesn't reciprocate.
he doesn't reciprocate, doesn't say anything, not even a thank you.
Wow.
But he loved being put on a pedestal by her, but he never put her on a pedestal. It's gotta go both ways. And as far as the plant is concerned, although I don't understand the come and take me part, I think, if somebody wants to continue a relationship, you don't send a cactus. You send something pretty, something nice. You don't send something that has tentacular leaves or whatever blowing in the wind and prickers on it. To me, it shows that she was in a way saying you're very thorny, you're very prickly. All you do is talk about yourself, and you're not there. You're not there for me. So
You agree with Richard's reading.
It's like she pricked his ego. She pricked the balloon of his ego.
yeah, but I don't understand what the name of the plant means. Come and take me. I don't get that. That
Well,
doesn't fit in with.
I think that was the answer to the proposal, because he proposed to her. She said, "Give me some time," and then she sends the plant. And again, this is just my reading of it, is that she's trying to say, "Yes, I accept," but she's trying to be, creative and answer the plant.
Yeah, I don't get the I accept, not after the way the way he treated her, or didn't treat her at all. I mean, she was how would she know that he even liked her? He never said. You can't find one word that he said to her that was nice to her.
Yeah.
Find me something. I don't find anything here.
Absolutely. And I think, it speaks to your point. It's the line I want to share from Orchos Sadiqim. Like Richard said, we were discussing it, and there's literally an entire chapter. Each chapter in the book is dedicated to another midah. It's dedicated to another character trait. So his entire chapter, the first one, dedicated to gaiva, to pride. So he
And
quotes
and how about Hakarata Tov?
exactly the fact that, and I think you're right, the fact that he couldn't be makir tov, he couldn't show gratitude and see the good qualities of her and express that to her, really speaks to that, because I think part of the midah of gaiva, of pride, is that you feel pride many times by not just putting yourself on a pedestal, but by putting people lower and not seeing what they have to offer. You're blind, you're oblivious to the character traits and the positive aspects that other people bring to the table. So you inflate your own ego by doing that. And so I just found this line from the Gemara I thought it was very relevant for our story. It says about someone who is arrogant, someone who's arrogant, even the members of his own household will not accept him. He won't be able to have peace within his own home. Shnemar gavar yarhir v'lo yinveh afilu b'navesh shalom. Even in his own abode, he won't be able to have peace and tranquility. And that's literally what happened here in the story, is that he was trying to seek a relationship with another person, and ultimately, most of the chapter is talking about how pride could disrupt our relationship with God, but pride could also disrupt our relationship with a potential spouse and with the members of our household. And that's literally what happened here in this story. So that this particular Gemara stood out to me. I'm not sure if anyone buys my connection here, but I thought I would share that.
No, I agree with you. I remember reading that, and it's very pertinent, because the third midah in this Orchat Tzadikim is the midah of love. Love is a two-way street, and you got to have a dialogue in order to have a relationship. And like Phil said, and it's a one-way dialogue. It's me, and the other person was there to put you on your pedestal even higher. And the fact that she smiled at him and gave him approval, sending him a plant. I mean, he took it as a way of approval. He didn't understand the message of it, and I think the very end of the story, he gets the message very clearly. He is a deflated man. He's come back with his buddy Carruthers, and his buddy wants to have a drink. Come on, we haven't seen each other in years, and you're sulking, you're sullen, come on, lift up your spirits. No, he can't relate to his own friend, whether it's family, friend. Your relationships break down because you're hurting so much inside. And I think that I know I've had that. I haven't been in this situation Trisdale, but there are times in which I admit I've seen myself other than who I am, and it comes back to haunt you. You realize that people don't like you because you are not who you are. If you can only be natural, have a natural relationship with people, which is what we all strive for, then there's shalom bias. You can have a dialogue in your own household, and
I would say that he's the cactus. This man is the cactus.
he is what, Phyllis?
He's the cactus, the man in the story, the conceitful person. Trisdale is the cactus.
That's what O. Henry is trying to tell us, that if you live that type of a egocentric, full of pride, vanity, vainglory,
People away. You chase people away.
yeah, then you're gonna, at some point or other, you're gonna be frozen. You're gonna be all alone, like that cactus. You get in the desert, and it still will not grow. It will just wither, so to speak. It's Rabbi Moshe and I also spoke about some of the greats beside Moshe. We have David, King David, who again was, we worship him as one of the great prophets, along with Moshe, because he was a great warrior. But above all, a man who was duplicitous in a love relationship, and Hashem holds it against him, does not give him the honor of building the temple, but he repented. This man suffered the pangs of misfortune, the pangs of sorrow. I did wrong. I did Uriel wrong by taking his wife and sending him out to battle. And Uriel dies, and I get to have his wife. He realized, and he repented and repented, and that's why David is admired, because the guy took the Trisdale experience, if you will, and he turned it around and wrote beautiful beautiful love poetry to show that the remorse that he had. And
So I think that's a good analogy. And there's one thing I just wanted to circle back to. Merrill, you brought up the idea of clothing and its significance in Judaism. So I don't have a Kabbalistic source, but I actually have quite the opposite of one. So if you look here in the Shulchan Aruch and Orach Chaim and the second Siman, the Mishnah Brura quotes the Rambam, who talks about what's the proper kind of clothing that a Talmid Chacham, a scholar, or really anyone should be wearing. And I think this really speaks to the idea of gaiva, the idea of pride in the story about clothing. So I'll just translate what it says over here. Yeah, good. I'm sharing the screen. You can see it, the Mishnah Brura here?
Yep.
Okay. Kasaf Rambam, Malvish Talmid Chacham, Malvish Na v'naki, that the clothing of a respectable person, it should be clean. A scholar shouldn't have stains over his clothing, so you shouldn't come back from a Thursday night learning program with cholent stains all over your white shirt, which I saw all the time in yeshiva. One shouldn't try to wear the most opulent clothing that's going to grab people's attention. Where I grew up in the more black and white yeshivish world, everyone thinks, many people, they think tznius is about, how long a woman's sleeves are. That's part of the equation. But the broader idea of tznius is that you shouldn't be drawing people's attention. You shouldn't be wearing the most opulent, glitzy clothing. Like you said before, Richard, all the brand name clothing that everyone's staring at you the entire davening, wishing that they were you. But also you should dress respectably. You should have clothing, if you're able to afford it, that people, they won't be looking at you for the opposite reason as well. Because then your clothing is a representation of who you are. Rather, one should wear standard, clean, respectable clothing, because what we wear is really a statement of who we think we are. If I'm wearing all this glitzy, opulent clothing, ostentatious clothing, I'm giving a message of gaiva, a message of pride. But if I'm wearing the malvish aniyim, I'm wearing the clothing of someone who is poor and I could afford better clothing, then it shows that I don't have enough self-respect. So that's the golden mean, as you referenced before at the beginning, Richard. That's the golden mean that the Rambam advises. So I know that's not exactly what you were referring to, Merrill, but you were looking, I know, for some Jewish sources on clothing. So that's just one that immediately comes to mind. I hope that's informative somewhat.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Richard, did you have any? Phyllis, are you still raising your hand from before, or are you raising your hand again?
No. How do you turn that? How do you turn it
Oh,
off?
I don't know, but it's okay. It's all right. I now you clarified. Richard, do you have any concluding thoughts that you want to share before we wrap up for today?
I really appreciate everybody's intake. I want everybody to participate, and I'm glad that Ann showed up. And welcome, Ann. And I go way back with Herb Roseman. I invited Herb to come. Ann knows Herb. He's a brilliant philosophy teacher at the JCC for many years. But there's a lot of philosophy here. I'll end it with a philosophic note that Merle probably appreciate, is that the Aristotelian, the golden mean, is what kind of life should you lead? I mean, if you want to be a scholar, that's fine. Be a scholar, but be somebody who relates to people, that brings the message out, to Socrates, to educate the youth, not just be a John Milton says he cannot praise a fugitive scholar, somebody who is by himself, like the monkish learners. You got to share learning, and that's what this is all about. So I urge you to keep coming and share your learning. And if you have any stories that you'd like for us to discuss in the future, we're open to it. We want to keep them short. That's the main thing. We don't want you guys to read a half hour. These stories you can read in 5, 10, 15 minutes. That's the idea here, so that we can have a discussion that winds up on a level of Torah and a level of midot, understanding what character traits are all about. I think that's what all these stories. Shirley Jackson with the lottery. What kind of a person should you be in order to keep the harvest going? You're the person that has to throw stones at one person every year, kill one person so that the crop should grow. That was the message of Shirley Jackson. And then the man who would bring rain is what is proper burial? What's the proper burial so that and respect for the dead, so that you can the dead act as a source of inspiration, spiritually, metaphysically, mystically, which that short story got into, and we took it to the Jewish level. Phyllis bringing the Afar of Israel, scattering the soil of Israel on the deceased here in America, and it was a beautiful short story. And by the way, these prior discussions are available. Rabbi Moshe did record them if you want to hear our
This is
discussion.
recorded also.
Can I just say
Yep,
one
you
thing?
soon. What was
Buy-
that?
I would say, connected to this, buy a plant for Tu B'Shvat tomorrow, but not a cactus.
Phyllis,
Well said.
that was right on, Phyllis. Thank you so much.
All right. Yasher Koach, everyone. And Richard, thank you again for
Thank
sharing your
you.
wisdom.
Thank
and
you, Richard.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Rabbi.
Coming, guys.
Thank you, Phyllis, Jake, Meryl, Ann, and whoever is 0449 who's with us. Thank you all for your insights and for learning with us today. We only get together once a month.
Once a month.
Stay in touch. If you have ideas for stories like Richard said.
We're thinking about Black History Month. If you have some type of short story that highlights Black history in a way, I think I'm finding some great Black writers that they're tremendous writers, and I'm going to discuss with Rabbi Moshe. If you have any insight, let us know. Okay?
All right, and check the coming bulletins for the next date. All right, have a great day, everyone. Enjoy Tu B'Shvat and have a good Shabbos.
Tu B'Shvat, yes.
Could have had the lotto story before Purim. Oh, well.
The lottery, there you go.
You can reread it. Du Chazara.
When Purim comes, we'll talk about it again. Okay.
All right. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.